After all these years, LCS teams still don't know how to play poke comps. And I think this is a bigger symptom of an entire problem. Of course, obviously, there is the problem that North American teams don't know how to play split push comps, but that is kind of a tangent, and maybe we'll get to that some other day. But poke comps, essentially, I would like to make them akin to, like to call them like judo flip comps, right? And if you were to give them like a martial arts style, I guess, right? Even though, well, I don't know, maybe disengage comps would be more appropriate, but we're gonna go with it now. So the whole point of a poke comp is that you wait for the enemy to start an objective. So essentially, you are on the defense almost always, unless you're trying to siege, right? But then that's a siege comp, right? Which is very similar to a poke comp. But so the whole point is that you want them to start an objective so that you can start poking. And the reason why that is important and why it works in tandem is because it's important to control specific zones within League of Legends. That's why control mages are so valuable in the space itself, is because a control mage is meant to control zones. But with a poke comp, they fundamentally do the same thing. It's just in a different way. And the reason for that being is because if someone is trying to take an objective, they have already limited their own zone, right? So they have fundamentally put themselves within a choke point just by nature of going for that objective. And you can expect certain champions in particular areas because they have started that objective. You could think of Baron or Dragon in the instance that oftentimes at Baron, the tank will be in a specific spot, and the ADC or primary damage dealer that's going to be doing a lot of damage against the Baron, right? Like obviously Azir could be in place of the ADC, but it's mostly the ADC will be in a specific spot because they have to be attacking the Baron. So as such, as a poke comp, you can take advantage of this because they've already done the zone control for you, essentially, right? So that's the fundamental basis of how a poke comp is supposed to work. It's that you have the enemy control the zone for you. That's one of the biggest strengths for that. And also, it is still important for a poke comp to have vision control at the entry point of the objective that you are trying to go on the defensive of, right? And that's because you don't want to spend all of your poke or all of your CD in order to check Fog of War, right? You want to be spending that actually hitting enemy champions at the zones in which you know that they most definitely should be at, right? So you still want to have good vision control around an objective. So I want to point towards a good instance in which I thought was quite well in how the LPL handles poke comps. And so this happened with Invictus Gaming versus RNG in week 5 of the spring split of 2021, right? So let's go ahead and just jump into this VOD real quick. So now we're not paying attention to the main screen, although I think the main screen itself, this fight previously was actually over near the mid turret to where they dropped Rift Herald, and then they kited back because they understood exactly how their composition works, right? Because they have Nidalee and they have Jace, right? So it's inherently just a poke comp already, and then you have Syndra and Xayah to do self peel for her, and then Rel, right? And so in the bottom left hand corner, you'll see that because the observers weren't able to get there right away because they were doing a replay, but it's that Jace is in the bottom tri-bush and the red team is doing Ocean Drake, right? And the rest of his team is over at the top, right, next to Pixel Brush. So let's just see this play out. So as you can see, they're trying to wait to do poke, right? So you already see Jace do one poke, and then Nidalee also got a spear onto Alistar, right? So that's 2 instances of poke. And Drake is about halfway through. And so another important part of this is the fact that they have their poke composition going at 2 different angles. Now, you aren't always going to have this happen, right? Sometimes you have to do a front to back style poke, which is then harder to execute because you just have different angles, or you have the same angle going at the same time, so it's easier to predict as the enemy team, right? But with IG, they have this set up to where, well, now Jace is in the back end and he's poking from a different angle. And also, take note that they synchronize their poke itself. Now, of course, Nidalee Spear is on a lower CD, so she could poke more often. But when Jace's poke is up, they're able to actually synchronize this to where it's very difficult to dodge because 2 things are coming at you at once. There's another poke. Didn't quite land. So we're already at 3. 4, spear. Jace is going to poke here. 5. And then Nidalee with the 6. And bam, they get onto Gnar. And you'll notice that Gnar didn't even get to have his rage bar up. And throughout that entire team fight, you could see that they were keeping their range, because the only way that Gnar is going to be able to build up his rage bar is through attacking the Drake itself, right? There's no other way that he can do this because everyone is keeping their distance and they're allowing Nidalee to poke and for Jace to poke at a different angle. So it becomes very difficult for Gnar to actually function against this entire team composition. This is another thing of to where that's why it's more difficult for teams to play as Gnar in other regions, because, you know, they do shit like this. They actually know how to play against Gnar, and the fact that he needs to build up his rage bar, and you need to keep mindful of that. And so you could see that Rookie was actually able to time his stun perfectly, along with Nidalee landing her spear onto him, I believe, beforehand. So perfect execution of a poke comp, especially because Jace was able to get the different angle. So that's how you execute a poke comp around objectives. And you can also see that they had kept vision control over into the entrance at the objective itself. So as I said before, there's only a certain amount of space that the enemy can go into because they've already started the objective. And you can see on top of that Gnar has to build his rage bar. So that means that he has to attack the Drake. So you know he's going to be within auto attack range. So it becomes just very predictable. And this is a really easy fight as long as people know what the fuck that they're actually doing and how their team comp functions. So let's get into a team that doesn't know how their team comp functions. So we're going to pop into 100 Thieves versus TSM, Game 1 in the 2021, I guess now it's called the Mid-Season Showdown, but the playoffs, right? So let's crack into this one. So here what we're seeing is, oh, we kind of bumped a little bit further. So we're gonna scroll back here. So here we can see that Jace is coming from mid lane, right? They're both teams are fighting for mid lane priority. And so the reason why mid lane priority is so important for a lot of teams and just how the game functions itself, at least, is because teams want mid lane priority to then either have that wave crash to where now, you know, the enemy team is just losing a minion wave. But also is because if you clean up after the Drake fight, then obviously you have the minion push so that not only can you get maybe 1 turret, you could possibly get 2 turrets, right? So very important. But anyways, so you can see here as both teams are posturing, they're posturing to try and get vision control over mid lane bot push, right? And So as 100 Thieves' is entire team composition, it's a poke comp, right? You have Jace, and then you also have fucking Deer Champion, and then you have Ashe, and Ashe can constantly poke with her W. And so as you have it, you would just want to keep constantly poking, especially considering that Drake isn't even up at this point. There's 10 seconds up for Infernal Drake, so you have plenty of time to keep landing poke, right? You have like 2 things of rotations in order to land poke anyways, right? Especially with Jace's cooldowns. So you have plenty of time in order to set this up, and then they need to go into the Drake to then create that zone control that I was talking about beforehand, which is fundamentally how a poke comp actually works. You want to be on the defensive instead of the offensive, right? So let's get into this a little bit further. So as you can see, Alistar just goes in immediately. So Huhi goes in immediately for some reason, even though that 100 Thieves haven't landed sufficient poke onto any of the enemy champions. Not only that, right, because they think, okay, well, it's the jungler, so maybe we could burst the jungler down, and then we have free reign over the dragon afterwards. It's not a bad idea, if not only for the enemy team composition, which is Jinx, which can throw out her chompers, and then also Orianna, which this is fundamentally just a choke point for Orianna itself, right? Because that entire rest of the team has to funnel into that area. Like, Alistar had left that as no choice in order to do that. So you could see how the rest of this fight plays out. Someone gets caught. The Lucian gets caught into that bush. And then, so now it's a completely scattered team fight. Obviously, TSM win this team fight out, and then they're able to get Drake afterwards. So it's just a fundamentally bad way of how they're executing this poke composition, right? That's not how you do a poke composition. And they even had vision inside that bush because they had a pink ward within the bush anyways. So it's very absurd as to why they would try and go for this play in and of itself. So that's one instance. Let's go to another instance. Let's go to where now 100 Thieves have an advantage in the top side, right? Someday is up in farm, and they also have a Rift Herald up in the top lane, right? And so you would think, okay, as Jace, you would probably just want to drop the Rift Herald top and kind of snowball this guy and get him a lead. And you can see here that Closer even tries to push the wave and help him push the wave itself. And then he recalls, which is very strange. And so as this plays out further and further, he ends up going and clearing wards near enemy Wraith camp, and then he drops the Rift Herald towards bot side. Now, granted, this is already when Someday has an entire advantage over top lane in and of itself. And as far as I know, actually, Jace is supposed to win this matchup anyways, right? So you would want to snowball his lead regardless, right? Especially because it just is Jace anyways. But instead, he decides to drop the Rift Herald bot lane for an Ashe. And the reason why he does this is because it's already 1240, and so they have to make a play anyways. And now, normally I wouldn't have a problem with this play if they could then coordinate a dive possibly, but that's not even possible too, because you could already see that Orianna was heading down here anyways, along with Nidalee herself. So there's no way that you're going to be able to pull out a dive and then dive that person, knock off plates with your auto attacks, and then have Rift Herald do the rest, right? Which is normally how a dive actually happens, right? To get the most effectiveness out of a Rift Herald. And yeah, maybe he thought, okay, well, we can't dive top lane either, in that previous instance. So maybe he could have just used Rift Herald mid, right, to get the Lucian ahead to where maybe the Lucian can snowball. It's like, nope, he decides to just put it towards the Ashe lane. And it's plays like these to where you start to question exactly if teams in North America know their win conditions, especially when they're playing with Jace. And, even still, with, I guess you could think of 100 Thieves as a team which plays away from Someday oftentimes, right? So that he's like this weak side player essentially. And even with that, you can see that it's just a clear advantage to drop Rift Herald top anyways. So it's just very bizarre. Now, we'll move on to another section to where there's another egregious move by 100 Thieves to where they don't know their win condition. So here it is again. So this is very early on in the game. This is game 2. And so the Lilia wants to get the Scuttle Crab. And then they want to transfer over to bot lane. And he's essentially trying to double scuttle. And so you can see the his mid laner doesn't have the HP pool in order to do this. But one clever thing that 100 Thieves is doing right now is FBI and Huhi then decide to wait in the bottom bush. They decide to wait in bottom river bush to wait for the enemy to rotate to check, right? Because they're all moving towards the crab. And so once they start checking, sorry, my computer is shit. And so once they start checking, bam, they get an advantage in bot lane, right? So this happens. This isn't the very important part. But now Huni uses his TP, and previously, Someday had already used his TP after he did his first buy, and so now he's completely set up. Now Huni had already did his first buy, so now he's super fucked, right? Super fucked. Wasted his TP. This was a bad TP call. And now Someday has free reign over topside. Right? He's already 4 CS ahead. And now he's about to get a full wave over. And then Huhi stops his recall. Like, this lane is fucking doomed at this point. This lane is super doomed. Any professional player should be able to raffle stomp this shit, right? I'm adding to my age there. But any Jace should be able to destroy this lane now. And now he gets a free recall. He gets a free recall after that. So now he's up a longsword too. It's just absolutely ridiculous, the advantage that Jace gets off of this play. So that's not it. That's not it. That's not where the fucking cookie crumbles in game 2. And it's so absurd that a team doesn't know their win condition, even just from the lane state itself. And this makes me further think that possibly 100 Thieves bot lane are actually way more vocal than Someday is. And that Someday actually doesn't ask for the amount of resources that he should. But also, it's the fact that Closer doesn't know his own win conditions itself. And just the entire team doesn't know the win conditions of the game state as it is right now, right? Every team should know that Someday or Jace is in a very good state right now. And so you could snowball this to infinity. And this is the part to where, like I said, LCS teams don't know how to play poke comps, and they don't know how to play around, Jace specifically too. So let's go to this last clip, which is just quite frankly ridiculous. So here we are. It's the same game. We're 8 minutes and 30 seconds in. Jace is still destroying. He's up 25 CS. He's up 25 CS. pretty ridiculous. And they have free reign over topside, right? And also, Closer was able to get Drake, Cloud Drake, previously, just right before this. And so he's able to do this. Kind of slow this down so my shitty computer can handle this. And so they're able to get Rift Herald off of this. Now, normally, what one would think is that you could just snowball the Jace, right? So that essentially your early game is very good and your split push is very good. And Jace is just very relevant for a longer period of time. That's also why you want to snowball the Jace too, is so that you extend his period of relevance necessarily, right? And so they end up getting Rift Herald, and then what does Closer do later? Well, let's find out. Let's skip ahead here. So he ends up going towards the bot lane, and he drops Rift Herald bot lane for some reason, even though he could have just revisited top and dropped Rift Herald top lane and gotten multiple plates for Jace. Maybe they could have even pulled off a dive, who knows? But I guess without the help of, a actual mage mid lane, right, that you don't have the adequate CC in order to do the dive effectively. But still, you could have got massive plates and just snowballed this Jace to oblivion and had a crazy win condition. And so it's instances like these to where I start to question LCS teams and their fundamental, I guess, basis of how they know how a team composition works, or I guess specifically a poke comp works, and how to, I guess, be tempered and be measured, and how they fight around objectives with poking. Obviously, as you saw before, LPL, IG used 6 skill shots in total before they were actually willing to engage the enemy. And so they ended up chunking them out massively to where now the enemy team just couldn't even fight them. And so you see this time and again, and I don't want to harp all on 100 Thieves. They were just the last team to play poke comp consecutively over and over again. But it's a larger symptom within North America, and multiple North American teams have actually done this incorrectly, and I'm just fucking tired of seeing it. And I think it's in part too because they've been just muscle memory trained within North American solo queue, because as we all know, what happens when you try and play a poke comp or even a poke champion within solo queue is that you're trying to get the poke off, and then maybe someone tries to go in to land a good stun, maybe an Alistair goes in or a Leona goes in, and the enemy team is still full HP, and you're just sitting there with your poke champion like, yo, like I've only let off one skill shot. You actually haven't let me poke out the enemy. What are you doing? And on top of that, the dragon isn't even about to spawn. It's about 30 seconds. Like, what are you doing? Like, it looked literally like 100 Thieves were a solo queue team at that point. They just didn't understand how their team composition worked. And I see this time and time again within North America. And it's very, I guess, sickening in a way, in that North American teams only know how to play one style, which is team fight comp, front to back comp, and that's it. And they know how to do the odd control mage to where they do zone control too, which is a part of team fight comp as well. It's just in a slightly different, right? There are multiple different iterations of how you actually play a team comp, a front to back comp, and one of the styles is obviously zone control mages. But it's just very disappointing that LCS teams don't know how to do one of these fundamental things. And on top of that, it's the idea that if 100 Thieves were able to snowball someday in the top lane, then they would have had a situation to where, well, now you have to send 2 people in order to fight Jace, or else he's going to get out of fucking control. And this is, I guess, one of the other plus sides of having a poke comp is that you can also force the issue in the sense of the other side of the map, kind of like how a Camille forces the issue in the fact that she scales so well. And I feel like North American teams kind of understand this to a better degree, right? And this is part of the split push comp dilemma that North America has, and that they don't actually know how to play split push comps either. But I think to at least a better degree than they know how to play a poke comp. But it's the idea that, well, if you have to send 2 people in order to fight 1 person, well, now if you have an Ashe on your team, right? So say 100 Thieves, they obviously drafted Ashe. Well, now when Jace is trying to fight 1v2, now you have a pick champion in order to take advantage of the disadvantage in numbers from TSM. So now 2 people are over in top lane trying to fuck over Jace. And so now you can get a pick into the 3v4 that you already have set up. If TSM are trying to do their due diligence and trying to stay away from you and avoid you because they know that they've sent 2 people over into the top side or wherever the fuck that Jace may be at the moment. So this is fundamentally how Jace is supposed to work, but it seems like North American teams just don't know how to play around it, and they don't know how to play poke comps, and of course they don't know how to play split push comps. So I just thought this was one good instance in order to bring up, and I hope that North America eventually fixes their problem, but I kind of doubt it because they just haven't fixed it for so long, yet it seems so very obvious as to the problems that are diluting the type of professional play that happens within the LCS.